Matt Moore, Associate Dean of Academic and Student Affairs for the University of Kentucky College of Social Work. Also in the sports social work space, founder of the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports, founder of the Sports Social Work Journal, and current director for the International Institute for Sport and Behavioral Health.
Diversified Game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today I have such an interesting topic. One that, if you're not into social work, you probably say, what sports social work? And if you are into social work, I went to our national, or actually our statewide conference, and I was talking about sports social work, and people said, what is that? And so kind of like pet social work, sometimes I want to bring you guys different things in social work because I've read some books and there's so many things in social work that it even makes an alien like myself feel normal because there's something for everybody. So Dr. Moore, I thank you for coming on, and I know you're comfortable doing this. Can you tell people who have never heard of sports social work what it's all about? Because whenever people hear sports, they hear riches and millions, fame, private planes, and I want to make sure they get, a sober definition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having me. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to share more about my passion, which is sports social work and expertise that I have in this particular subspecialty. What I will say is that behind the glamour and the fame and the excitement of sport are humans. And I think oftentimes that we forget that humans live real lives, and within those real lives, they experience day-to-day challenges that many individuals across the world experience: mental and behavioral health, difficulties with trying to navigate interpersonal and family relationships, difficulty trying to manage multiple identities that they hold as an athlete and potentially as a parent or as a son or a daughter, as a friend or as a colleague. So there are a lot of things that go into making the athlete that is things that we don't always see, right? We see what happens on a field of competition, but we don't see the day-to-day interactions that actually shape who that individual is.
And this next one will be for my social workers who say, wow, I didn't know you could get into that. Or I've heard about that, but I heard that you have to get, some expensive credentialing. And I knew a friend who didn't have any of that. So I don't know if it's necesito. Is it necessary? And I want to ask you, just clearly, is getting their credentialing gonna get you hired? Because a lot of people think credentialing sometimes is what's blocking them from getting a job.
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the world of sports social work, we really kind of look at three different categories of jobs that we see. One are individuals that are working in true clinical settings. So working with athletes around mental and behavioral health diagnoses. Certainly you've got to have the appropriate credentials to be able to do that. So when we look at positions like that, licensed clinical social workers, or whatever the state equivalent is across, the state in which your listeners might be listening in from, have to have that in order to be able to do that. The other aspect that we look at in sport is oftentimes really around like life skills, positive youth development, advising, career mentorship, career readiness. Like those aspects really don't require an advanced clinical license to be able to do. Those are things that fall outside of the clinical realm. Graduate degrees are certainly helpful in that space, but there are a lot of individuals in sports social work roles that do have undergraduate degrees that are working with athletes in those particular areas. The third one is as you start to get into more like policy research and administration within sport. And again, depending on the area in which you're wanting to go in those particular realms, certain degrees may or may not be helpful. I know that there are a variety of different sports social work certificates that are out there that I think are advantageous to do, but I would not say that they are necessary to do. I do think that in a competitive market, when you're trying to crack into sport and recreation environments, that credentials like that do put you one step ahead of the competition that is out there, but I don't think it is a requirement for you to be able to apply for different positions.
So if you had two applicants and one, had every sports social work certificate available because they're probably like me and say, hey, if I can afford it, let me get it if I have the time. But they have very few relationships inside of athletics. And then you have someone who has, just an MSW and they have strong clinical ability and deep relationships, with coaches and athletes. Who do you go with?
Personally, I would say you can't go wrong with either one of them because they're social workers and we want to hire more of them. I think the answer to that is not an easy one to be able to answer. I think that what you mentioned in the second one is a really critical element, and that is, do you have an understanding of athletic identity, sport culture, sport identity, and what it means to work within athletic environments? I think certificates do a nice job of training you like on the educational side of that, but it doesn't necessarily provide you the hands-on practical experience of what it means to be an athlete, what it means to be a part of a team, what it means to be in that particular environment. So certainly there is credence that is given to those individuals that do have those deep connections within sport themselves. And I'll give you an example. I mean, I started my career in coaching. So really no strong desire from the beginning of my professional career to ever go and get an MSW or to go and get a PhD in social work. So, I mean, my connections to sport centered around the fact that I spent years in athletic coaching before going back to that. So like my connections to sport run deep, well beyond any formal education that I've received.
And you talk about your PhD. People I'm talking about to professors and classmates about, you know, DSW versus PhD, and everyone's like, well, DSW sounds easier, sounds cheaper, but the PhD actually might get some money for. What made you and what did you get out so we can live through your wisdom and your lived experience? Do the PhD. How did it help you? Why?
So the one answer to this is the DSW was not really all that popular when I did my PhD. So the DSW has definitely made a strong comeback over the last decade or so with more programs that are offering it and making their programs more and more robust. For me, like I'm a researcher at heart. So one of the things that I really loved about the PhD program is that it does provide you with advanced research skills that I think sets you up for the ability to do studies throughout the course of your career to try to better inform what are the realities that are happening within the world of sport. And like to me that's important. As a coach it's important, as a social worker it's important, and as somebody that's got athletes that are working with social workers and sports psychologists, we want them to understand what the reality that these athletes are living in includes so that they're able to provide the best treatment and the best support services possible to make sure that they're having the experience that we want them to have.
And now with, side note, the topic of the day, sometimes the week for people is AI. People say, well, I do research every day with, Claude and chat. Can you talk about the difference that maybe the AI will be able to help you in some ways, but it's not going to be able to get your peer reviewed journal that you're going to put somewhere that everybody's going to try to pick apart?
Yeah. So AI is a slippery slope in the world of research. Certainly, you've got to invest your time and your energy in digging into the peer reviewed literature, reading what other authors have been able to do, looking for the gaps that exist within the research paradigms that are out there. AI can't do that. Now, if I want a really quick, definition of, what are potential signs and symptoms of a student athlete that might be experiencing a mental health crisis. Like, sure, that could give me an initial snapshot into that, but to really understand the role in which social workers play in athletic environments and to understand the true needs that athletes are facing, you've got to commit yourself to doing the research, to reading the articles, to reading the books, to staying aware of things that are happening in political environments and in the news. And AI, they can't give you the full depth and breadth that you really need in those spaces.
Have you seen a difference in someone like yourself who has a PhD versus someone who has a DSW? Just as far as, the work that they're doing, whether it's in the research or just working every day, like medical doctors look at DOs and like, yeah, they're good, but we're better.
Yeah, so like to me, I really don't. I mean, I look for above anything else is do you have the passion and the heart for what you're doing, and that to me drives the outcomes that you're going to have with the individuals that you're working on. A DSW can achieve many of the same things that a PhD can achieve, and vice versa. If their heart and their passion and they've got a clarity on what it is that they want to be able to do. What we see oftentimes in the like difference in the DSW and the PhD spaces, DSW individuals have a lot greater tendency to work in direct industry as opposed to going into higher education settings. So the PhD, I definitely think you see more like pure academicians that have got PhDs and maybe you do DSWs, but I think there's a shift that happens in there. And again, I think that goes back to over the last decade, the DSW has really seemed to grow in its popularity. I think there's more programs that are offering DSWs. So be interesting to see where the market shifts over the next couple of years. I mean, in our PhD program at Kentucky, last year we graduated 3 PhD students. We graduated 250 DSW students. I mean, big difference that you see between the 3 and the 250.
And can you talk about, I said it earlier about, PhD, maybe there's money for you. I haven't seen a program yet, even UPenn. I haven't seen a program that will pay a DSW student at Kentucky. Are you guys paying your PhD students? Because that might make someone say, okay, I'll do the PhD.
So our PhD students, a lot of them are fully funded, tuition, stipend, health insurance, which is relatively common across, especially flagship or R1 institutions with PhD programs. Our DSW students have got opportunities to apply for scholarship, but the funding is nowhere near what it would be for a PhD student. Obviously, in the PhD world, we might only be able to fund 3 or 4 students in a year, which is a very, very small number compared to the total number of students that we see that are applying for a DSW degree.
Now, do you want the certifications? And this is kind of it's biased because you helped build the credentialing ecosystem. But do you want certifications to be something in the future that, people say, if you don't have this, you might not be qualified for this job? Do you think that will ever be a thing?
I do, and I do for the right reasons. So, I mean, at this point, with the growth of sports social work, you see a lot of different things that pop up every single day, like become a certified sports social worker, learn more about sports social work. And just like with any aspect of most of the different, true practice professions that are out there, like you've got to have some level of like regulatory oversight of it because you don't want anybody just saying that they could be a sports social worker, no different than you don't want anybody to just be able to say, yeah, I can do clinical social work stuff. Like there's got to be pathways in place to ensure that individuals have received the proper training, the proper education, and the support that is necessary to be able to say, yes, I can do these things in this particular environment because I've been trained and I can do them really well.
And since you're already in the field, because I want to take the guesswork out for people who just say stuff or said, Chat GPT told me, yeah, it told you what you wanted to hear. But are you seeing a difference also when someone graduates with the PhD that they're making X amount of more dollars versus the DSW? Or are you saying it's all based on, where they wanted to land or what connections they had?
It really is more about where you want to land. So, I mean, certainly, institutions of higher education, if you go into the faculty world, like, I mean, you've got pretty clearly defined salary ranges that exist in those particular spaces. DSW students do so much vast things from private practice to working in governmental organizations to expanding and going into for-profit nonprofit areas. So just there's a lot of range that exists in a DSW space. Same thing is true with PhDs that don't want to go into higher education and they want to work in private industry or they want to work for governmental organizations. There's just as is the case with any profession that is out there, there's a range of dollars that you can and cannot make. In the sports social work space, A lot of it depends on the level of sport that you're working. So whether that's in a professional setting, a collegiate setting, or you're doing more community-based work around youth and adolescents, athletics and recreation. I mean, salaries are going to depend based off of that as well.
And since you did help create, the credentialing, can you tell people what would be and why, what credentials they should go? I believe in Kentucky, it's, you can pay 2,200 and you're going to have to do some work. It's not just something you're going to get done in a day or in a week. But can you talk about the different ones and the differences so people know why to come to you? Because what I don't want people to do is pay for something and then later on say, oh, I should have paid for this, or this didn't give me the job or the boost that I thought it was going to give me.
Yeah, so and then I'll tell you that clearly I'm biased. I mean, as a University of Kentucky employee and as the leader of our academic programming, like certainly I've got a internal bias that I will own right here, right now. We do more in the sports social work education space than any other institution across the United States and candidly across the globe. And I feel very firm and secure in being able to say that. I know what other programs and other universities are offering right now, and it does not rise to the level and the extent to what we're able to do at Kentucky. So for our MSW students at Kentucky or individuals that have already earned a graduate degree, we have a postgraduate certificate. It's a 9 credit hour certificate. You take an introduction to sports social work class, an advanced sports social work class, and you take a trauma practice class because we know that trauma is a bedrock of things that every single one of us experience. Every one of us is going to have our worst day at some point within our lives, and trauma is going to be embedded within that. We see a lot of that within athletics as well. In the DSW space, we've got the world's only sports social work concentration in our doctorate of social work program. So students in that are taking all their standardized DSW courses, but when they get to their concentration year, are taking 3 courses that are geared specifically towards sports social work topics. And then we've got our continuing education certificate. So that's for individuals that are already have completed degrees, don't necessarily want to go back and get an actual formal educational certificate, might not want to look at doing a doctorate program, but is a CE program that is put on with the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports, which is the professional organization for sports social workers across the globe. So it is a joint certificate between UK and the Alliance, and that's a 32-hour continuing education certificate. Take a lot of online modules. Then you've got multiple synchronous like live classes that you're participating and engaging in as well. And that's a CE certificate, but covers a lot of the same types of things that you would get in the coursework, just obviously not in 32 hours. You're not going to cover what you would typically cover in, say, a 15-week college course semester. So got different levels of entry and exit points for individuals based off of what they are wanting to do or where they're at within their lives. But all the materials have been put together by experts across the United States and the globe on sports social works. I mean, you're learning really from the best of the best.
And what are the actual jobs outside of teaching that somebody with a master's or the doctorate level are, going after? And are they, are those jobs keeping up with the popularity of, oh yeah, I want to get into sports social work?
So at the professional level, s- still need to be growth in that area. A lot of professional organizations will use mental health registries. So what we see is a lot of social workers that'll join the mental health registries, but at that point, like, you're on a registry with a bunch of other individuals, and how many of those individuals are getting phone calls to work with professional athletes or not, who knows? So I think there's a lot of work still to happen in the professional environment. The collegiate sport world, where you're seeing the largest boom in job market growth for social workers. You see them, like I mentioned earlier, in the clinical roles to individuals that are actually serving as like mental health counselors, mental health providers within collegiate sports spaces. You're also seeing a growth in social workers that are working in non-clinical positions that are doing things around student athlete development, life skill development, career readiness, academic advising, those types of positions. And at the community level, significant growth because you got to think of the number of youth and adolescent athletes that are out there, adult athletes that are participating in rec leagues. these individuals all saying that athletics and sport are a part of my identity and needing right mental and behavioral health support, community level supports. I mean, you think big brothers, big sisters, YMCAs, youth sport organizations, high school organizations, school social workers, all of those individuals, right, are going to have multiple touch points throughout the course of their day with individuals that are athletes and believe that athletics is a really firm piece of who they are as a person.
And are people coming in with again, a sober mind? I think about Napoleon Dynamite's Uncle Rico, or who, if the coach would have just put me in, and people saying, well, maybe I can get in. And even myself, I'm K show speed, big brother to I show speed, right? Virtually, not in real life, you guys. I don't want you to run with that. But are people coming in and saying, I still got it, I might still have some eligibility, I think I can compete, I just want to go throw the ball or kick the ball, and you're still a coach, while doing everything else you're doing? Are you seeing people who want to get into sports social work still wanting to kind of compete?
You do. I think you're drawn to sports social work most of the time because sport has mattered in a large way to who you are as a person. And I think that's really, it can be a beautiful thing if it's leveraged correctly. You also see individuals that sport has been a huge part of who they are, and they are living through their sports social work role, life of athletics that maybe is not putting the athlete and the individuals in that athlete's environment first. So it's a slippery slope for sure. But I am a firm believer that, if you've got connections and ties and you've got the ability to say that athletics has allowed for me to be who I am and where I'm at, along with many other things, that you have a deeper appreciation for the work that you're doing. If it were not for sport, like, I'll be candid, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So, I mean, like, sport led me to college. It, created my first job opportunities. It put me in a position where I really wanted to learn more about the needs of athletes that are out there. It encouraged me to want to go back and to earn the degrees that I've had and to live the life that I've lived. So, I mean, and certainly there's been other highlights along the way of support from family and from friends and from mentors and from others. But at the center of it has really rested this idea of, I love sport. I love that what sport has the ability to be able to do. I think it's one of the only platforms in the world that has the ability to really unite people together as opposed to divide us. And I wanted to be a part of that and found a way through social work to do it in a way that is really meaningful.
What do you think about, the NIL deals have been big since 12. I wanted to be an agent until I got to here in South Florida, and the rules changed. And I thank everybody who was a part of that. And all you had to do was pay money to become an agent, unlike California where you actually have to have a bond. So I say, okay, I'm a sports agent. I have to let people know, because while I'm a consultant, I also let you know, hey, I have this credential. I just want to be open. Are there any room for dual relationships with an agent, and maybe that person also being in sports social work?
Ooh, candidly, I've not given it a whole lot of thought. So you're going to get just the raw initial responses. I think you'd have to be very careful in that, because no different than we don't want a coach to be the counselor or the social worker for the player. I think you've got to always take dual relationships into account. What I will say in the NIL spaces and many of the areas that we are seeing, especially in the collegiate sport world, move to is we need individuals that can actually really help protect athletes, because there are a lot of moving pieces to NIL. There's a lot of dollars that are being slung around right now, and we're asking 17, 18-year-old kids to have to understand complex contracts, to sign into agreements that they might not fully be able to understand. And I do think that there are a lot of predatory practices in the NIL space that are putting athletes and other individuals in their lives in unfair situations and potentially exposing them to different levels of risk and harm.
Love that. And I like to go deeper because there's universities here in South Florida, and I was shocked. Any of my athletes have been in track, and I haven't had, a many, but it's because coaches say, I trust you. I see what you do with your other clients. But the universities also are handling NIL deals. And I'm thinking that's a dual relationship, because they're thinking about the university first that's paying them, and not that the kid, I say, after you guys hit colonoscopy age, you can start calling, 19 and 20-year-olds kids. And so, is University of Kentucky also helping athletes with their NIL deals? You guys let the vultures, I mean, the agents, just come and do what they do?
No, so I mean, I think you've seen a big push across, especially Power Four conferences, where there's just candidly more resources to be able to do that, and you're seeing more NIL deals in Power Four conferences, obviously, than you are in other places. To where universities are, I think, trying their best to protect athletes. A lot of universities have actually hired NIL coordinators that are working explicitly in that space to try to help athletes to navigate what are some of the expectations and asks that have been done. It's certainly a part of every single compliance meeting that athletes and coaches and others have to go through. We had our compliance meeting yesterday, and a good portion of it was spent around NIL conversations. So, like, what are the do's? What are the don'ts? What are the things to be aware of? What are the things to try to avoid? Who to go to if you have questions about what this looks like? Because it's all exploded so quickly that I think that at this point we're trying to play catch up to make sure that the athletes themselves have got a firm understanding of how does all this impact you. And there's also a lot of nuanced rules around, students that are on student visas that are international students have to be really careful about entering into NIL stuff because it could jeopardize their visa status. So, I mean, there's just, there are things that have got real world life implications and consequences if they're not done the way in which they need to be done. So, would hope that universities continue along this pathway of making sure that they're athlete centered when it comes to the NIL stuff.
And it's such a sensitive thing. I'm 30 minutes from Belgrade, where more NFL players come, they say, than anywhere in this country. And talking to some of the mothers, and then one thing they say is, he didn't listen to me. And I'm like, well, how did you train him? Who did you have him around? Because Belgrade is in Pahokee. Both places are very impoverished. They're working on gentrifying all of that area because it gets cheaper land here in Palm Beach County. But are you finding, where do parents lose the child, where they no longer have, are the kids just waiting till 18 to say, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing and rebel, which is kind of a normal thing when you look at it because people are waiting to be their own person. But where are parents losing the control of this maybe blue chip athlete?
I think in many different ways. So I mean, I do think what you mentioned around you hit 18, you enter into your adulthood, you start this new experience, especially if you're, in a collegiate environment, that there's always going to, I think, be some level of natural separation that is going to happen. I've got a kid that graduates high school this year, right? So I mean, undoubtedly, like, our relationship, though I don't want it to, will probably look a little bit different over the coming years because ideally he'll be in college and doing his own thing and growing in his independence. I think part of that is healthy and natural. I do think that you see in the NIL space a lot of young minds that are seeing dollar figures, which sound great, but they're not always understanding what those dollar figures actually entail. When you talk about particular areas across the country, you also have to think of are these student athletes coming from an environment where they've had a firm understanding of fiscal and financial literacy, or are they coming from an environment where they have really been having to live day by day within their family, paycheck by paycheck, to be able to, like, have all of their basic necessities met? And we know in the collegiate sport world, you have athletes come from all different walks of life, individuals that are coming from the most impoverished and difficult situations and environments that any of us could imagine, to individuals that have truly had the access to everything that they would ever need at the tip of their fingertips and benefited greatly from it, and anything that exists in between that. And I do think that, as I mentioned earlier, there are predatory practices. So, I mean, if you're not well aware of what it means to enter into a contract, or you're not well aware of, okay, maybe you're getting this money, but what are the catches that come with getting this money, that you think from the dollar sign as opposed to thinking from the what is logical, what is appropriate, and what's going to put me in the best position to be successful. And, candidly, the college sport world, and, I've spent a lot of years in coaching in the college sport world, and I love it. I think athletics are tremendous, but I worry day in and day out about, the changes in legislation, the change in just the general scope of college sports. When I started coaching almost 2 decades ago, it wasn't the world that we're living today. And I think some of it's for the better, but I think some of it is not great for the athletes. And I think sometimes we lose focus on like the beauty of what sport can bring. I think we lose focus on the fact that we really are trying to graduate champions and making sure that they're graduating and that they're prepared for what comes next within their lives, and that we're setting them up for an experience that is going to be educational, memorable, and allow for them to live out their sporting career in the best way possible. And you start introducing a lot of other factors into that, you can quickly lose sight of, I think, why all of us got into sport to begin with.
Now you're definitely qualified to talk about, the thought process and the brain. I want to maybe make it difficult for you and ask sports social work versus sports psychology, knowing that you have a degree as well in psychology. Can you let people know the difference? Because a lot of times people are saying things that they just, again, Gina Chat, BT, or Claude, and I hear mix ups. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So you please, doctor, give us
Yeah,
the
so
difference.
let me start by saying this. I think there is a need in sporting environments for all sorts of different professions: sports psychology, sports social work, athletic training, sports psychiatry, licensed mental health professionals, like you name it, right? There is a space at the table in the world of athletics for all these individuals to get involved. One thing that I always try to highlight about social work that I think is really unique is social work, I think, does a better job than other professions on training from a systems-based perspective. So, right, we look at the micro, the meso, the exo, and the macro systems that surround these athletes. So, I mean, not only are we concerned with the athlete, but we're also concerned with the entities that make up that environment around them and how those entities impact the athlete's experience as it relates to sport or to other areas within their lives. I also think social workers are really great about being able to see the athlete as a person as a whole. And that's not to say other disciplines don't as well, but like we make it a firm part of all of our training for individuals to understand that athletics is just one portion of their identity. And it's really important for us to understand the totality of who this person is. So, yes, I'm an athlete, but I'm a coach, I'm a dad, I'm a brother, I'm a friend, I'm a faculty member. Like I have all these different things that comprise who I am as a person, as a social worker. It's really important for you to understand the interplay and the interconnectedness between those. Social work does not get into performance the way in which psychology, sports psychology, would get into performance related mechanisms within sports. Like that's not something that as social workers that we touch, right? There are individuals, much like sports psychologists, that are well versed, well trained, and receive all the support that is necessary to help athletes understand how can implications or other factors in life be impacting their performance that we're seeing on and off a field or a court or a rink, wherever it is that you might be competing. The other aspect I will say is that a lot of sports psychologists are also clinical psychologists. So like they do have the ability to understand the mental and the behavioral health aspects of things. So I think you've always got to be really cognizant of what are the credentials of the individuals that are working. We obviously need sports psychiatrists because sports psychologists, social workers, we can't prescribe medication. So I mean, like you need a bunch of these different professions really working together. What drives me insane, I've written about this in numerous peer-reviewed publications. I hate interprofessional competition. This is not a matter of saying social work is better than psychology or psychology is better than social work. Like we have to have an appreciation and a respect for what each discipline can bring to the table and how those disciplines fit into an integrated care model to where we're able to really address the totality of what the athletes, the coaches, the administrators, and the other individuals in a sport environment that we're working with experience day in and day out.
A lot of people just want to fix the problem. They want it to be done quickly. But you're a tennis coach, and you could have somebody. Again, I'm here in South Florida. I'm not from here, but I've met 12-year-olds who are already signed to a deal, and I'm like, how different would your life be, and how do you stay humble? I mean, you're in an HOA community because of what you and your sister do, and your parents, I mean, they still got to parent you. It's kind of like the Joe Jackson and, everybody else we can think. How do you, as a coach, get, the trust of a kid who has had it all, but also knows if something happens to me when I'm 14, and I've seen it happen to a 7-year-old even, I was shocked. Like she got a deal and then the deal was gone. How do you deal with that? Because most people will never know how that feels.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, we see it from younger and younger kids. Like, I mean, and it's one of the areas of sport evolution that I've not been a fan of. A 12-year-old should be a kid. They shouldn't have to worry about specializing in a sport. They shouldn't have to worry about prioritizing their athletic training over their academic growth and development. That's why we see kids that are burned out from their sports at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. And maybe have all the talent in the world, but because so much pressure was put on them and so much emphasis was put on that talent that they have no desire to compete anymore. So I think as a society, we have to do a better job of, trying to recognize and to make sure that kids are actually kids above anything else, and that sport is one piece of who they can be, but it should not be the totality of who they are. We see it in the college recruitment space on a regular basis, right? To where, we're out there recruiting student athletes from all over the world. I mean, tennis is definitely recruits heavy in the international market. So certainly US based recruits, but looking more broadly in European, South American, African, Asian countries that are, you've got great talent that is existing within that. Um, just puts them in an unfair position. So, and I think you've got to always, when you're recruiting, try to think through like who really seems like they still have the love and the passion for the sport, and who's coming to play for you, not because of the money, not because of the NIL components, but because they love the sport of tennis. They want to grow, they want to become better, they want to put themselves in a position to win championships, to be able to continue along with their career. And that's a fine line to be able to have to try to identify from. I mean, it's one of those that every single coach that is out there right now is having to look hard to try to figure out like, why us and why do you want to come and play for this team? And if it's because you want the money, candidly, I don't want you, because like we're doing this because we have a passion and a care and a desire to continue watching the sport of tennis grow and to evolve, and that matters more to me than anything else. So there is a goodness of fit that exists out there that has become really difficult because of the changing tides within sport.
When you say that, it's not about the money. I'm thinking about, because you said Africa. I'm wearing my Cameroon jersey. I go to Africa quite often, and we recruit for different things. A lot of it for other clients for their businesses. But I tell people, if you're only coming for the money, don't come, because it's not going to be enough money. I don't have a dream to sell you. What we want to do is make sure you get in, you're comfortable, and that you never retire broke. If you listen, and I make no money if you invest in VTSAX and chill. I don't make a dime doing that. I'm not doing it for you. When you're going to Africa, particularly, what countries? Because I want my African audience to say, "Oh, hey, look at me, look at me. I don't need the money. I want the education first." Because Africans understand a lot that education is going to take you to the next level, and not everybody gets to be educated, even into high school, depending on where you are. Your bigger cities, Joburg, Nairobi, but there's still people who can't pay school fees just to finish high school. So what countries in Africa have been your main focus?
I mean, where I recruited from, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, South Africa, 4 countries that I've had good success in being able to recruit from a tennis perspective. Obviously, that could look different for different sports that are out there, but I mean, those are ones that off the top of my head, I know that I've had athletes that have played for me that have been from those particular countries. Um, we talk about the not wanting it to be because of the money. Also, I'm not naive to the fact that for many individuals without a scholarship, they wouldn't be able to make higher education a dream. So, like, there is that fine balance to saying, well, yeah, like the money is going to come with it, but I also want you to be here because you want to actually be here, not just because of the fact that we're able to give you a full ride scholarship and to give you some other perks and benefits along the way. So money always is going to play into a decision. I mean, we recruit players all the time that like we're going up against other schools that are like, well, this school can give me $5,000 more. Like, we've got to ask ourselves, what is this athlete worth the $5,000 more to be able to get them to come play on our roster and to not let them go to a competitor's roster? So I mean, money always factors into it. But like I said, I mean, truly for me, it's does this educational opportunity and this sport opportunity put you in a position to have long-term success? And I think you hit on it really beautifully that especially in tennis, in college world, you're not going to make money outside of playing college tennis. If you were that good, you'd be already playing on the WTA or the ATP tour. So, I mean, like there are college players that'll go on and will do well, but if you're not in the top 50 in the world in men or women's tennis, you're not making a ton of money when you factor in all of your travel expenses, your coaches, and all the other things that allow for you to continue along that road. So, I mean, for us, it really is about, are you going to come in? Are you going to dedicate yourself to the sport? Are you going to dedicate yourself to the degree? And are you going to put yourself in a position after your 4 years that you're going to set yourself up for a great life that tennis will be a part of, but it's not going to be what generates your income. Your college degree is going to be what generates your income.
I don't want to get the attention of Interpol, but I'm going back to where you said the international students and NIL deals, it could get tricky. Is there any violation that or ways that you've seen them? Maybe they don't get paid here, but they get paid in their country, or they create a business and now the business gets paid.
Yeah, so like for my athletes, no, I'm sure that there are, but I mean, our international athletes, they stick very firm to the rules on what you are and not allowed to be able to do. I think $600, below $600 is a threshold for what an international student really, in an NIL transaction is safe to be able to do. We do see athletes that will compete in international tournaments during the summer that is now permissible to be able to do some of that stuff. So we do see athletes that are making money outside of sport, but I mean, they're doing it through, ITF tournaments and those types of things in tennis. But I've not had athletes that have done what you're talking about as far as setting up different things in their home country that are allowing them to profit and to benefit off of it. Not to say that it doesn't happen. I just don't have familiarity with it.
Tell us, what is a community give back that you're doing or one that you'd like to do in the future? And if there's a way we can help you with that, please let us know as those who listen.
So, I mean, for me, like trying it, especially from a tennis perspective, trying to introduce tennis to groups of individuals that maybe don't get a ton of exposure to it. I mean, I'm not naive to the fact that tennis is not a cheap sport. I mean, you can command a lot of money in the private lesson world and in the private coaching world in tennis. And sometimes tennis does not have the demographic reach that I would like for it to be able to have. So, I mean, I think we have to do a better job of making tennis accessible for all. I would say that's true in a lot of like sports. So tennis is not unique in that, but you look at who plays tennis, and it's largely individuals that are coming from higher socioeconomic statuses and backgrounds. It's individuals that can pay several $100s a week to be able to do lessons and clinics and other things. And we've got to do a better job of making tennis more affordable for anybody that wants to pick up a racket and be able to play.
Thinking with AI and the humanoid robots, even though we're going to be paying for the humanoid robots by the hour, Peter Diamandis and them say, you now have somebody to play with or something to, constantly fetch your balls. I know there's things out there, but even at a faster rate, maybe the drone zooms in and grabs it. Um, Tell people, with the program that you created, does it help you find a job too? Because there are some programs that say, come see us on this weekend or this month, and we're going to actually show you the jobs available, which I'm like, they don't know you from Adam. They don't know if you're qualified or if you're a good person. How can they show you a job? So there's some predatory things out there that, some quick money grabs. And then there's some programs that will tell you, hey, all we do is give you the information and that's it.
Yeah, I think we do a great balance between the two. I mean, we never overpromise. You can't do that. So, I mean, it's bad business to overpromise. Like, I can't guarantee any one of our graduates that they're going to be able to walk or and get the exact job that they want to. We prepare you from an educational perspective. We set you up with the networks. We help you make the connections. But you and I both know, right? I can't sit in an interview for you, right? I can't answer your questions. I can't tell you that you have to or to not to apply to a particular position. So there becomes a point where it is up to the individual to be able to bring things across the finish line. But in our program, we definitely prepare you for all the competencies, for the experiences that we know that you're going to face in your given career. We help you to facilitate the network. We access our alumni database. We utilize our sports social work connections that we have across the globe to put you in front of the individuals that you would want to be put in front of. That no different than, you know, I like to think I've earned every job that I've had. So, I mean, certainly I've got, things that are helpful to me when it comes to looking and applying for positions, but you got to interview well. You got to be able to articulate your ability to do the types of things that are needed. And you've got to be able to convey your passion and your heart for what it is that you're doing. And that's up to the individual to do. None of us can do that for one another.
Can you tell people about your book and what they will get out of it once they buy it and read it, or ask their local librarian to order it in
That's
droves?
right. So it's only sports social work textbook that is out there. So I mean, it's something that I hope changes in the coming years. I would love to see more authors dig deeper into sports social work topics. A book that I wrote with my dear friend Dr. Ginger Gummold is a introductory to sports social work. So really kind of establishes the framework for how sports social work came to be, how we've established sports social work competencies and values, how social workers work in integrated teams with psychologists, athletic trainers, and other professionals. What are some of the psychosocial risk factors that lead athletes to become vulnerable populations? So, mental and behavioral health, eating disorders, assault, trauma, the different things that we know impact individuals' lives, and then some introductory ways in which to engage, assess, to intervene with athletes, and then a chapter on policy and the role in which sport policy plays on impacting athletes that are out there. Book really focuses more on the college population than it does on other populations. That's unique to me. College athletics is where my heart rests. Love all other levels of sport, but when you ask about, who do I want to work with, where do I research, what's most important to me, the college athletic population is where my heart will always lie.
And you guys ask your librarian, but also, is there any plans of, since you said it's the only to do a part two or an audio book? Because I tell people, hey, Theo of Gold is a great book. Future is Faster Than You Think is a great book. And everyone, not everyone, but many people say, I don't have time to read. Is there an audio book? And they won't read it unless it's an audio book.
So what I'll give you is a little piece of exciting news. So we're actually right now, myself and then two faculty members at Ohio State University, Dr. Don Anderson Butcher and Dr. Samantha Bates, are actually working right now and putting together the very first ever sports social work handbook. That handbook will have chapters on just about any topic that you can think of as it relates to sports social work. And I am very hopeful that the publisher will allow for us to have an audio version of this handbook. It is probably at least a year to a year and a half out from being done. So, I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time. But at this point, we've got all of our authors confirmed. We've got authors that are working on chapters that we'll all edit together. But it'll be really the most extensive read on sports social work that exists out there. So, really excited about it. And something that I think takes our literature to a brand new level, because the chapters will all be written by individuals that are experts on their given topics. I mean, you're talking about over 100 international experts on various topics that'll all funnel back into this one handbook. So it'll be a phenomenal resource as soon as it is finished.
And your last book was 2018. So much has already changed in that short amount of time.
A ton of it has changed. So, you try to write a textbook as evergreen as possible, but I mean, the world of NIL was not where it is right now in 2018, 2019. Transfer portals weren't really where they're at right now. So, I mean, it's, sport is an ever evolving discipline. So you can try your best to keep things to a point to where they remain consistent over time, but no, I mean, the reality of it is you could write a new sports social work textbook every 6 months. So it's the way in which our sport world evolves, which is cool and is exciting, but it also does not come without its fair share of challenges.
Well, since you said that, not that you're bored ever, but if we, could challenge you, that means there could be a podcast on this that you could have and that you could, have an episode every week, every month, or whenever something significant pulled up.
Oh, we definitely could. Like I love a good challenge. So I also know that there are a ton of individuals that are out there that are very bright and very well respected on sports social works. I think the better idea might be to try to get a collective of us together to be able to host something in that realm, so that you can hear from as many diverse individuals as possible. Because my experiences in sport have certainly been shaped by like what I have lived. And I'm sure every single one of us, right, brings something a little bit different and a little unique to the table when it comes to these types of topics. My biggest goal, though, as it always has been from day one, is to try to just make sure at the end of the day we're doing right by our athletes and that we're putting them in positions to be successful and to be healthy and to feel safe and to be able to achieve the things that they want to be able to do. And anybody that wants to join me in that crusade, I'm all for it, because it takes a lot of us to be able to have that level of oversight in sport.
Well, you have the names, the information if you need. I tell people I'm a baggage handler to a door opener to whatever, putting strategy together because why not? Well, we're stronger when we all come together and we, fight for the same thing. And this is definitely impacting people's lives, especially when we think about, and I don't know how true this stat is, but when they say, X% of athletes end up broke after 5 years, or the depression that athletes go into after they don't feel, since 8, you've been told you were great. And it's like, no, let's get you while you're on top. And again, my relationship with sports is different because it's in my family and you get to see certain things. And I'm like, no, you got to have your plan B, C, D while you're on top so you can know who you are, because you're not just an athlete. Even though, you might be, my brother is 6'6" on a good day, 400 pounds. But he can still give you a kick to the jaw. But he knows he's just him, right? He's not whoever you put him in this box. So I'd love, if you need help with that, to play whatever position with that, because I know it's needed. It could help a lot of people and families. Give us your final words. Anything that people can reach out to you, and please tell them where to reach out to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're always welcome to reach out. So, I mean, my email address is really one of the most simplistic email addresses in the world. It's just mattmoore@uky.edu. So, kept it really simple in the UKY front. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you want to find me on LinkedIn. I'm not a big social media person, so you're not going to find a single social media account for me besides LinkedIn. I have lived a happy life not having social media. And so it continued to plan on continuing that trend. But I think my biggest takeaway for everybody is you go out there is all of us have got athletes that are related to us in some capacity, whether it's a brother or a sister, a mom, a dad, a niece or a nephew. We all have close friends that have got connections to athletics. I think it's really important for all of us to be able to take a second to look at the individuals that we classify as athletes and to try to figure out what else might they be going through beyond just their athletic experience. Because I think too often we pigeonhole individuals as being one thing, and we don't take into account who they are as a total human. And while athletics can be really important for a lot of individuals and it might rise to the top of the identity ladder at many points in one's life, it can't be all that they are. And I think if we want athletes to be successful and we want them to be well adjusted and to achieve great things in life, we have to make sure that we're equally prioritizing the other areas of who they are. Because I think in that is where you actually find performative outcomes. And I think you find success because you have athletes that are well adjusted versus athletes that are feeling like they have to live up to expectations and to standards and to other things that have been set forth for them that may or may not be achievable. So when you're working out there and you're looking at the athletes, just try to remember who they are as a whole person and don't always over focus on just the athletic side of them.
Well, you guys have gotten the game. I thank you for joining to the end. I thank you, Dr. Moore, for coming. Please, everybody, you can comment, you can like. Most importantly, though, I need you to share this with somebody. It can and will change their life. Y'all be blessed.
Ready to dominate your industry with strategy that actually scales? At Coleman Public Relations and Consulting Firm, we're not just PR experts, we're licensed sports agents certified in AI and elite business consultants with over 2 decades of experience leading global projects across multiple countries. Visit cprfirm.com, that's colemanprfirm.com, and millionairex.ai. Then download the Millionaire X app, your AI powered guide to getting out of debt, investing smarter, and building generational wealth. Coleman Public Relations and Consulting Firm. It's a family business, it's different.
Hello everyone! Join us on an exciting journey with Explore the World Cameroon. London and Sydney go take you explore Cameroon, the heart of Africa. Experience the vibrant culture, nature and traditions from Yaoundé market to rainforest adventures. Every page na new discovery. Join the Cameroonian food, music and wildlife with our explorers. This book na true celebration of Cameroon spirit. Get your copy now. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and through your library and bookstores via Ingram's Park. Don't miss this adventure.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kellen Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.